Brandon Brands.
Hey everyone, what's up? It is Brandon here, Brandon Berkmeyer with brandgrowthlive.com. Hope you guys are having a great week. Today, wanted to talk to you guys about how to promote new episodes of your podcasts. Now, this could work for live streamers too, how to promote new episodes of your live stream. But I really wanted to dive into podcasts specifically. I have a lot of podcast friends out there, a lot of people that are trying to create new podcasts for the first time. And it's a question I've been getting in the community. So if you're a podcaster, listen up. Let's talk about how you take those simple steps each week to promote those podcasts. I'm going to jump into theme music and we will jump into it.
Brandon Brands.
All right, let's get into it. First off, thank you guys for tuning in each week. I know that this is a relatively new show. This is new content, new format. So I do appreciate you if you tune in, you check it out. Let me know what you guys like. Leave some comments, shoot me a DM, whatever it takes. I'd like to know what you're liking, what you're not. We've done guests each week where I have live guests come on and I answer their marketing questions, their top 3 marketing questions. And that's been fun for me. I've got to coach real people with their marketing questions live. Today, instead of bringing a guest on, I'm just going to throw up the questions today and walk through them with you live. But if you want to participate, feel free to be involved in the comments and let me know that you're listening. You can always type in hashtag live to let me know you're paying attention. But I would start with this. Let me know in the comments, are you guys listening to podcasts? I know if you're a podcaster, you definitely are listening to some podcasts. Everyone likes to get a little bit of example of like what's working for other people to get a sense of what might work for them. So tell me what podcasts you're actually listening to right now, or type them in the comments. I'd love to know what that is and some of your top, if it's not your top 1, your top 2, your top 3, whatever it is. And I just want to get a sense of what you guys are into right now. But if you're thinking about starting your own podcast, or if you already have it, or you're just getting started, or you're a few weeks in, or you're a few months in even, just wanted to give you some ideas, some simple steps, the things that I go through literally from day one to the end of the week of what I'm doing to promote my podcast episodes, so you guys get a sense of how that works. Now, I know a lot of you, if you're listening live, you might be in front of a computer, but you might also be on your phone, working around, driving, whatever it is. So if you want to get these tips, I did make it easy for you. I will let you find a way to download this so that you're not sitting there trying to figure out what the list is and writing it down in your notes. So I created a link for you guys. You can just go to brandonbrands.com/pod guide to download those simple steps and promote the new podcast episodes. So that's all there for you. So just take the time to listen today. And then afterwards, you can go to brandonbrands.com/pod guide. And all this information is right there for you with a little bit of detail and those steps. And you can download it, print it, and just make it that if you want to follow my same steps, just have that list with you and check them off as you go to make sure you're not missing something along the way. So hope that's useful for you, and we will jump into it. I'll bring up a little bit of visual aid here to help us get going again with this first question. So give me one sec. Let me pull that up and get us going. So question of the day, how to promote new episodes of your podcast. So I don't care how many episodes in, I'm doing 3 a week, but it's every day still I try to figure out what is my process, what is my list, how am I going to get this out to people, how do I get people to keep listening to it. And I've been thinking about this a lot lately because I want to be able to help other podcasters solve these same problems. And the first thing is, there's the first 3 steps here, but I'll go through them one by one slowly, right? So how to promote new episodes of your podcast. First is to get listed. So go ahead and obviously once you have created your episode, you've got to make sure that that's distributed. So the first thing you're going to do before you tell anyone about it, before you announce it, is make sure it's distributed. So obviously if you're starting the podcast and you've already know this, but making sure that that episode has gone live is step 1. So I have Libsyn, which is one of the podcast platforms that you can upload to. I use that every week to drop my episodes, and I make sure that that episode actually went live. So I go to Libsyn directly, and I see if it says that it's been released. And then I also go to some of the podcast players just to confirm. I look at iTunes and some of the other ones to see, is my episode actually sitting there live? And that's obviously the first thing. And not just uh, that it's there live, but also I make sure, like, every now and then I'm Googling what is it that I might be missing in terms of other places where your show can be listed? Because Libsyn pushes it to a few places, but it's up to me to make sure I'm everywhere. So just the other day, I was Googling, like, where can I list my podcast? And it's everywhere from like Stitcher to SoundCloud to Pandora to Spotify to iTunes to Listen Notes, I think .com or something like that. It's called. There's a few of them, and the list kind of goes on and on because people kept building these new companies. And I just make sure that if I can find that list, I go to wherever it is that they need me to submit a RSS feed, and I copy that and I submit it to them and follow their steps. And if it's a new company you're not familiar with, you're not sure how to do it, you can always type into Google, upload podcast to, SoundCloud, and it'll usually give you steps on how to do that. And that's step one, is to make sure you're actually distributed everywhere you possibly can be, because whether it's an extra listener or two, you want to make sure you give your listeners the opportunity to find you wherever they happen to be listening to podcasts. If you only distribute to iTunes, then you're only working with people that have iPhones and Apple devices and are on their computers, but not necessarily people that want to listen on an Android device, or people that love to listen to Spotify or Pandora. And you want to make sure that wherever they're listening, you can be found, so that when they type in something like marketing podcast, like they would for me, that you get found. So I just try to make sure I'm listed everywhere, and that once I've done that, that my podcast has actually gone live. So get listed is the first one. The second is I actually create my assets ahead of time. So I go ahead and say, okay, not only the audio assets, but the visual elements. I have to figure out each week, what is the art that I'm going to use to promote this podcast on social media? And that's new every week, every episode. I figure out what it is that I want to say about these episodes that I'm going to be promoting. And so having artwork that helps visually communicate what that episode's about and catches people's attention is going to help you. And I know a lot of people like to use the format where it's just their picture and a picture of their guest, like blown up with very little else distracting them. I go the other way. It doesn't mean it might work worse. I don't know, but I actually like to add some exciting visual elements into the picture itself, tell people what the show is about, and see if that's something that might draw their attention into what the episode's about. Because I figure a lot of the time, if you show the picture of the guest, they may not even know who that guest is. So a picture of them is just a picture of two random people to them, including you. And so I like to make sure that the headline is something that stands out, and maybe something visual in the background stands out. And if that means that I have to take my picture off the episode, or I have to like make the picture smaller of me and the guest, or of just the guest, I'll do that just to bring some visual attention there. Now, I'm not a creative designer. If you can get someone that is creative and is a graphic designer to help you come up with a really good looking template, go for it. But the way I see it is, just create something that is unique to that episode, that stands out, and that might get some attention of your audience, who you know what they like to look for. So go ahead and do that. Create those assets ahead of time. And then I make sure that when I am about ready to tell everyone about this, I have those assets ready to go in a list. Like, here's where all my listings are. If you want to find my podcast, here's where my posts are. So if you want to read the blog post that goes with the podcast, here's where that link is. If you want to use the pictures that I've created for the podcast, here is that picture. If I've created a video for the podcast, a clip, here's that video link. So I make sure I have all my links in one place. I have all my pictures in one place. And I make sure that is just easy to access and copy and paste if I need to put it anywhere I'm out there right before the episode goes live. So I have that easy to access, and I'm not sitting there figuring out every time I need to send something new out. So I do that first. And I'll show you this. When I create a new asset, I like to go to Canva. I don't know if you guys use Canva. It is a very easy tool to go ahead and figure out how to create assets that fit the spectrum of the creative you're building. So they have all the sizes figured out for you. And I'll zoom in on this so you can see it a little bit better. But if you go over here and you're in canva.com, that's where I am right now. I click on templates, which is here on the left side. You can go ahead and figure out, do I want a poster, a logo, presentation or flyer or whatever it is, I go ahead and just I type in something like an infographic. I think is, I'm sorry, that's not right. There's an Instagram post that I use for Instagram posts. Um, and I can go to that. They have square sized social media posts, and you can find that right off the bat. There's Instagram right here. You click on Instagram, and it'll take you to the posts that have, there's story templates, there's highlight covers, there's snapshots. You can see they have different designs along the way here. Anything that's going to help you figure out take some of that design trouble out of you having to do this work yourself is going to help you along the way. And you can simply create a format that you think looks good and say you're like, oh, it's something like this is pretty simple and it does the job. You click it, you say use this template, and it'll take you into the form to start working in. And it has all that populated, and then you can go ahead and replace these pictures with something that you have already uploaded that you think is something that they want to see. So maybe it's, I throw in a picture here, and I have to sometimes adjust this to fit me into the picture correctly. And then you can take something like my guest, one of my guests from a couple weeks ago, you can throw that picture in. And then you could say something interesting, like, list, find a clever caption that's like, what's the deal with live streaming? And you could, call out what your episode number is. But it's that easy to create some kind of picture that gets people excited about your new episode number, and then you can let them know where to find it and whatnot and add your links to it. But just wanted to show you these tools because they're the kind of things that keep it easy for me to get in there and design new graphics for the different posts that I'm building. And also, sometimes I want to design a lead magnet, and I'll use the same thing. I'll go into an infographic type template, which is why I mentioned it before. And they have all these amazing different formats where you can go in and say, okay, maybe I've in my podcast said, I have a list of 7 things like I did today, and I'll click on a format and I'll say, let me just take this and replace their 6 steps with mine and pop in some new emojis or whatever it is that's going to be useful here. So that's something that I like to do, and that step has helped me kind of move things along in terms of getting my content shared out more quickly, because the design element, I'll tell you, is not my forte. And the one that I did today is the podcast pod guide, the step-by-step guide to podcast promotion. And that's something that I built for you guys. Again, you can go to brandonbrands.com/pod guide and it'll be there for you. So those kind of templates are really useful. And I'll tell you, I started at 9 a.m. this morning, and by noon I had a template that you guys could download. And in that same amount of time, it wasn't just designing. I had uploaded it to my feed for, there you are. I uploaded it to my website so that you could download it. I put an information grab into HubSpot, a new form in HubSpot that says, give me your name and email. And I put that on the website so that you have to fill that out to download the list. And then I put the list in a place on the website that it can be downloaded after you provide the information. And all that was done in a matter of 3 hours, so that now if you guys want this information, I have it. And not just for today's call, for future podcast episodes, I can now say, hey, if you're listening and you want to know my 7 simple steps to promoting your new episodes, go to brandonbrands.com/pod guide to download it. Now I'm taking people out of the listening experience and giving them something, number one, that's valuable because they don't have to sit there and take notes. But number 2, they can download and give me their email information so that I can continue a relationship with them. And the hardest thing for a lot of podcasters is developing a relationship with their listeners. And part of the problem is that they're all mystery listeners who you have no information on, and you don't know who they are and how to get a hold of them and how to keep them listening. Maybe they like 3 episodes and then they stopped listening. They started listening to another podcast. They still like your content, but they forgot you're there. You're not top of mind anymore. But if you had captured their email along the way, have a way to remind them based on your own consistency of delivering emails. You can remind them every couple weeks or every week or whatever it is that you have new content out, and they can look at that and say, no, I'm not interested, or maybe I am interested. And on their own time, go listen to those episodes instead of when they just release them. So that's why I like using these tools that help me create creative assets. That's why I like having these extra steps that bring people in. So I know I've gone off the rails here a little bit, but let me jump into talking about the master post here. So master post is that first post you build that talks to people on social media about what's going on. Hey, April, I see that you just joined. What's up? What's up? You said, do I have a free or paid version of Canva? You know, I started with the free version, April, so thank you for asking that question. I actually did upload or upgrade to the paid version because I just found that I was using it so often that I really liked all the extra functionality and wanted to have kind of unlimited downloads and extra access to different types of content. I even pay sometimes for different pictures. I love that the stock photography that I can use in pictures if I don't want to use my own stuff. And I use it all the time. Sometimes even for these PowerPoint graphics up here, this green camera with the photo in the background, that was just a picture, a stock picture from the Canva archive that I can throw into these presentation slides because I don't want to use anything that's copyrighted. I don't go to Google and type in a picture name. I want to make sure that everyone is getting credit for the work that they do or that I'm using photos that are license free or, in a way, or I pay for the license if they are not license free. So I try to make sure I'm using that. But yeah, I love Canva. I use it literally all the time, especially someone who's not a creative at all. It's not my forte, and I try to limit my time spent designing. So thank you for asking the question. I appreciate you for tuning in, and let's keep going here. So, and anyone else, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I love hearing from you guys. Uh, so yeah, the third one here is master post. So the third thing I do after I make sure my podcast is distributed and I've got my assets developed is I send that first, I write that first post. And that first post is going to be something that is the image that I created, the interesting copy, the clever copy, some kind of uh, hooky grabbing call out that says, you should go listen to this and here's why. And it might be some credibility comment about who my guest is and what the amazing thing they've done. Or it might just be some hook that brings you into why you want to know about my topic for the day. And one of those couple things, and I kind of make sure I get that headline figured out, whatever that headline is going to be. And then I figure out the couple of phrases below that that's going to support that phrase. And then I mention, the episode where they can find it and make sure that I link my guest and tag them in my post. And all of that is part of the master post process. And then I come up with the hashtags I'm going to use for the day. So I have all that built out and ready to go and make sure, and I do it once. I create it on Facebook first because I want to just copy and paste it to the other places. And that's usually the easiest place for me to type. I'm on my computer. I can type faster than using my thumbs on my phone. And so I type on my computer. I can download the pictures that I've created. It's all in one place, easy to use. And then even if I want to do it on my phone later, I could still go to this post, copy and paste the different type, and while I'm out and about, post that out and upload the images as well. And something else that is useful for me is I actually go one by one. So I go to LinkedIn and then I change, I paste in the copy and then I change out the way that instead of the actual full link to the episode, I say link in the comments, and then I type in the comments where the link is, because on LinkedIn, they don't exactly reward you for putting a link in your actual post. So, I changed some of that. They actually like less hashtags on LinkedIn. So I'm starting to learn how to cut my hashtags down to about just 3 for LinkedIn, but more for other platforms. So I do some changes there as well. But I start with that master post so I can just cut from there as opposed to having to rewrite it every time. I go to Instagram. I usually paste the exact same thing, but I change the link to just be my more obvious. Instead of the episode link, I just say brands.com because that's easier to find. And then I go to Twitter, and I'll actually have to cut it all down to a much shorter, just a couple of sentences so that it fits into the character max on Twitter. And then I'll put that picture up there as well, and make sure I tag my guest again. And then I go back and I go to stories and I make sure everything gets promoted to stories as well. And I do some live check-ins on that too. So I have my master post there, and that master post is what starts everything. So as I started to allude to, the next step in that process is to go ahead and repost my that creative everywhere I can. So I make sure that I'm doing these things that I was just talking about, which is, making them specific to the platforms that I'm on. And I don't just do that the day of. I also make sure that I have some opportunity to do it the rest of the week as well to remind people that there's still this episode on Monday, because from my Monday episodes, that's my killer content. That's my interview with these amazing thought leaders in marketing. I want people to know what's going on and to be able to find that. So whether it's another post on social media, which I do that, I actually changed the format there. I'll do maybe a picture post the first time on my Monday drop, and then I'll drop it again on Tuesday, Wednesday, but at this time it'll be a video clip with an actual excerpt from the episode for 1 minute with some call outs that bring people into that video. That's how I do it. And I post that same video then again to all the different platforms and do the same customization that I was just talking about. So I'll do another post, and you can do a third or fourth post if you want. I run out of time on that, so I just do two right now. And then in my Wednesday podcast episodes and my Friday podcast episodes, I try to actually refer back to my Monday, and I connect all those themes together under one content pillar. So if for this week I was talking to Brittany Crystal, who's a personal branding expert who worked with Gary Vee and Marie Forleo and Tom Bilyeu on their personal brands. We had an awesome chat on Monday. So I'm like, okay, personal branding is the topic this week. So in my Wednesday episode, I'm going to talk about personal branding. In my Friday episode, I'm going to talk about personal branding and how it relates to me, as opposed to my Wednesday, which is more like tactics and strategy. So I go through all that, and that gives me a whole theme for the week of things to talk about. And I get to repost and reconnect all the dots on this stuff. And that's where I think that volume comes in, that reminder messaging, where someone's finally enticed at some point in the process and says, maybe I'll listen to it this week. Maybe I'll check that out. So I go ahead and I repost it to to social media. I have different ways of doing that, different posts and different formats, and talk about it in different places. And then I go ahead and I email my list. I say, I go into my email. I send an email out to everyone that's on my list and say, this is what content's coming out this week. And I'll admit, this is something that I've neglected, and most podcasters I've talked to have neglected, is A, having a clean email list, and B, actually using it to promote their content. So that's been a focus for me for the past couple weeks, is really figuring out what am I going to do to grow my email list, to work on my content, to have a better cadence of sending out messages and learning about what my audience likes to listen to. So that's a focus for me. I'll admit I am not perfect at it. I'm not great at it. I am working on it, but I know for a fact that it is probably the most important thing I will do for my podcast moving forward. And I want you guys to focus on that as well. So not just emailing your list, but growing that list is important. We'll talk about that in a second. But so let's just say follow up and send an email to your list. Let them know, what's going on with you that week in very simple text. And also, hey, if you want to know more about this, you can always check out this podcast. And that's a way to keep people actually listening and subscribing and reminding them to go listen, so those listener counts stay up. Because they may not just be on iTunes all the time, but they definitely get that email because they check that email pretty often. So do that. And then a follow-up post. A follow-up post for me is really about that second or third thing that says, okay, now that you've heard from me, how do I get ahead and talk to people on a more one-on-one basis? So I'll connect these two: follow-up posts and direct messages. So follow-up posts would be, I go into places where people are actually chatting about me, into different chat rooms, different Facebook groups, and I let people know, hey, this is what I'm doing. This is what's going on. And I use those same posts, not just on my profiles, but in other people's groups and other people's forums. And then I go ahead, and if I know that my guest that week has an event that they're speaking at, I make sure to look for the hashtag of that event, shaking the camera. I engage in that conversation, and I let them know, hey, one of these speakers this week, I've actually had an interview with. So if you love this speaker, why don't you check out the episode and let me know what you think? That way, it's people that I know are the audience of that speaker, and I've given them something that hopefully they find useful. So I'll do that. Sometimes I'll find out where that speaker or that guest is engaging on social media, and I'll try to get involved in their comments so those people get to know me as well. And basically find ways to repost this content in more niche places that are really relevant to just that person. So if there's personal branding topics going on Twitter and hashtags, I make sure that I'm engaging those conversations or something like that. And then I go and I jump into direct messages. Now, what this means is I'm actually engaging with people and saying, hey, people in the group, if you guys are interested, I'd love you guys to listen to this episode. It would mean the world to me. Let me know what you think. Or if I find someone that I know needs help with the topic, I say, you know what, I just did this episode on personal branding. It's perfect for you. Why don't you go ahead and listen to it and let me know what you think? So I find ways to actually directly communicate with the people that I know need the information. So I go from really broad to really targeted. And it may not be a bunch of people that I send direct messages to, but if I know someone that this is really relevant to, I try to get them the information. Because then they, especially people that I know, promote my stuff and they say, you know what, maybe this is a person who has a following that they might tell their audience about. I try to make sure that they're connected and liking and interested in my content. And then the next thing is stories and live video. We have, this always on tool in our hands, and not everyone scrolls through your posts and finds out like what's going on with your business, but they may see the stuff going on in the live more often. So I try to make sure if I get a chance, if I can go live and let people know I did an awesome interview this week or today, go check it out. If I check in with what I'm doing, I also remind them that I had this episode coming out. So that's always a great way to get that top of mind awareness, is to get out there and post that stuff live. Lastly, I want to make sure you're growing your list. And this is the most important thing that I alluded to earlier. If you aren't capturing their information, if you aren't giving them a way to communicate with you and you to communicate with them on your own terms, in your own list, then you're going to eventually lose these people because they will fade. And if you haven't brought them into your ecosystem, into your world, you're going to lose them without any chance of connecting with them again. So I would say your list is the most important thing you could ever do for podcasting in general. And that's why I'm focusing on it now. So getting out there and developing a list, building a lead magnet like the one I talked about today that I built for this podcast or for this live stream even, building those things out that you can redistribute. And again, it took me a few hours, and you can make better and better ones. You can spend a whole week on it and develop something that's epic. And that's the point, is to get into the habit of developing these things. I like to make them smaller, digestible, and related to my content for that week, but you can do it however you want. I'll have some evergreen ones too that I'm working on that'll be bigger, but just so you guys get a chance, give yourself a chance to grow your list so that your listeners are now part of your audience and you know who they are and you can connect with them. And once they're on your email list, then you can send them to your Facebook group. Then you could, that brings them into your ecosystem. And then once they're in your ecosystem for a period of time, when you keep talking about the things that you're selling, maybe they won't want it at the beginning because they're still cold and they don't know you that well. But maybe over the course of a couple of weeks or a couple of months, finally you have something that they're interested in buying. So that's the whole thing. And guess what? Those people on your list, those people that are buying from you, that are visiting your Facebook page, that are on your email list, those are the people that become the audience that tells other people about what it is that is special about your content. And that's how you get people to share those podcast episodes beyond what's going on with social media. And I try to pull you out of that. I want to give you the obvious stuff first because the social media posts are great, but they're fleeting. And if you didn't catch someone in their feed, because something like 3 to 6% of posts ever get shown to you. So if I post to my audience, like only 3% of that audience is going to see my posts. And that means that I'm missing the other 97%. But if all of those people were on my list, I guarantee you they're going to see it in their inbox. They might skip it and think it's spam or whatever else, or just they know that I send one every week and they might skip it. But at least I'm showing up. And if they are interested in my copy that's at the very top of my email subject line, if they're interested in it, maybe they'll dive in that week because they're interested in that topic. So I give myself another chance. So do what you can to build that list. And it's something I'm focusing on. It's something that I want to help other people learn how to do. If you have questions on that, join my community. Go on Facebook and join the brand growth community on Facebook. You can go to brandonbrands.com/FB to do that. FB is for Facebook. And I keep putting my best ideas out there. And if you want to talk to me directly, that's where you go. Everyone that joins the group gets a 15-minute live call with me, one-on-one, where we talk about your business. So you're welcome to do that at any point. And go ahead and give me a thumbs up if you're liking today's content. I know I'm hustling here and talking as fast as I can to get all this out there. I just want to make it useful for you guys. And if you're watching, make sure to comment #live. Let me know what your favorite podcasts are. I want to keep you guys engaged and involved. I appreciate you guys checking in. Uh, and then, so those are my answers for that for the day. And beyond that, I do want to say that if you, again, you don't want to like write all this stuff down. Feel free to go to brandonbrands.com/podguide to download these simple steps to promote new podcast episodes every week. And that way you have that list as a checklist for you to refer to, and it's right there for you. Beyond that, if you guys want to be on the show, you're always welcome to come on. I love new guests. I love bringing people on, and you guys are my world. So if you want to be a guest on the show, you want to come on live with me here. There's no, you don't have to be special. You don't have to be someone with, a billion followers to come on. Just have a marketing question, have something you want to ask, come on the show. I love having conversations with people that are thinking about their business, are thinking about their brand. Maybe you're a coach, you're a consultant, you run a service-based business. I want to talk to you. I want to exchange ideas on how to build your personal brand, how to build your reputation, how to build content like this, like the live stream here that I do every week, like the podcasts that are running 3 times a week, the things that are posted on YouTube, on social media. Let's talk about how to build those together and get you going on building this personal brand that's actually going to help build your business over time. That's all I got for you guys today. You can go to this link down here, brandonbrands.com/live guest, to fill out the form with your 3 questions for marketing. And that's all it really takes. And I'll bring you on the show. Or I'll ask your question for you if you really don't want to be on camera. That's fine too. That's all I got for you guys today. I hope it's something that you found interesting. I'd love to hear your comments. If you do listen later, type in #replay so that I know you watched it either way. Doesn't matter if you're live or replaying. I love all the viewers. I love all you guys that are commenting and participating. I do appreciate your time. I'm going to keep this going as long as I can, as long as you guys are involved and liking the content. I'm happy to be your host and to answer your questions every week. So appreciate you guys, and I will catch you next time.
Brandon Brand.